going to give us a few more minutes to see if Maria comes on.
And I guess we're just missing Aaron, but he usually pops in late.
Okay. All right. So now that we've got Maria, I will call the meeting to order. Do we need a review of Zoom procedures, Mike?
No, we should be good.
Okay. All right. I don't know if other commissioners have had a chance to look at the agenda, but if anyone wants to take a look and move to approve the agenda, go ahead.
I move to approve that.
Great.
I'll second it.
Great. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. The next section is comments from the chair. I don't have any comments. I do have a few questions, Mike, and I don't know if this is the place to do it, but just things that I wanted to go over in terms of upcoming public meetings and also the farmers market. So is Evelyn planning to, or is there going to be a table at the farmers market for the next few Saturdays? And
Yeah, so in general, yes, the plan is to have someone at the farmers market. We didn't line up a tent, which is why this weekend in the pouring rain she opted not to go. She has her own tent that she can use,
okay.
but she decided that for this first one she wasn't going to. But in general, she wants to try to go and have it, whether it's our stuff or rec stuff or other city stuff. But she is going to continue to put out, even if it's just her, the city plan stuff while she's there. But if I can be there, I'm going to try to be there. But if other folks want to fill in for me, it is Saturday morning from 9 to noon. She usually sets up a table, not in the farmers market space, but on State Street towards the Capitol, in front of that building that's there.
Usually, is it where the police meet the police set up in front of like 133 State?
When I was there, the meet the police wasn't there, but okay. That's not to say that that's not the location. It's right in front of that building. It's on the same side as the farmers market. It's just not it's not in the farmers market. It's on the street next to the farmers market.
Okay.
So it's a pretty easy location to find. We had a lot of good communication when we had the first meeting there. It seemed like a pretty good location. So, but yeah, we're going to try to keep doing it throughout the summer, right through to the fall. And depending on how much obviously she's going to keep bringing the different pieces of information on the city plan. And if any of you want to show up, we'll probably just shoot out an email at the end of the week to go and see who wants to go. So that way we don't have 8 of us there or none of us there.
Yeah,
we'll just figure that out.
I'd like to go this Saturday. This is probably the best weekend for me since my daughter's at Sleepaway Camp this week. So that's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Will we also have, so we'll have the storyboards there, I assume. Will we also have like printouts of material that people can take, or?
We will have, she's been doing some printouts. What she'll have is those implementation plans, the big boards, but the storyboards that are on the website, obviously we won't have. But we will have the implementation boards, and she'll have flyers that have links to the storyboards. And so a lot of it is just initiating discussions with people about what we're doing, what's in there, and people a lot of times just review and have some questions about different programs and stuff. And if you don't know, I'll have business cards there. If I don't happen to be there, people can always say, just reach out to Mike. Here's his business card. Most of the time, people just want to talk to you about what their concerns are, what their issues are, and how they're being addressed. So it's a good opportunity to meet people where they are.
Great. And then in terms of the next two public meetings, it sounds like the July 8th one will be on Zoom. And then the July, is it 22nd, I think,
Yes.
would be the second one in person. And I'm just wondering, if we want to briefly talk about where we want to do it. I mean, I found Wilder Arts, if Maria is willing to do it again there, like a little cheerier than the Elks Club, and also a little more, centrally located. But I don't know if there's a compelling reason we are doing it at the Elks Club, the second in-person meeting.
I think in that case, a little bit of that one was because it was about the arts, it was about housing, and Country Club Road was a main site for the housing. I'm just a little concerned. It depends how many people show up, and that's the challenging thing about Maria's site, is that we never know how many people are going to show up, and if we did have a crowd of 25 people that showed up, I think they would be very cramped in there and might be kind of disappointed, and especially in late July, maybe that might be a little warm.
No, Wilder Arts is air conditioned.
Oh, is it air conditioned enough to keep us nice and cool? All right. But that was my concern, is I just, for the number of people we had, I thought it was a great space. I was just concerned if we had another 15 or 20 people, would people feel comfortable enough in that space, or not? And that's really a question of how many people are we going to be able to draw out for these meetings. And if we're going to get more, we really should have a space that could accommodate more. And that's, I don't know, that's just for thought, food for thought. It's your meeting, however you guys want to do it, and wherever you guys want to do it, I will make it happen.
I'm all for the Wilder Arts because it logistically makes sense for the greater net of people who may or may not want to drive. The Elks, I agree, was kind of out there. And so it just makes more sense. And, planning on the hypothetical that we get a number of people, where I've been in this number of times, I don't see that amount of people overwhelming us. And if they do, we can, I'm sure, be nimble for a solution. That's all.
Okay, no, good.
Does anyone know of other spaces downtown that?
We should hit up Rebel Rouser or Ed. I mean, at this point, take the paper. We could take the paper down or keep the paper up. They're only discussing the vendor stuff that's in there, so the place is just sitting there.
Well, do you have any contacts there that we could ask?
I can. Sure. I'll reach out to the person who owns the building and see whether or not. I mean, it's Ed Kaplan. Everybody knows him, but I don't know if everybody has a relationship. So I'll just see. I'll just see if he's willing to do something with it in transition of whatever they're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation would be with Rabble Rouser, if that would be tricky or not, but
I mean, if we have hotspots, everybody has hotspots at this point in the world, and so
okay.
that can be an issue.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little easier in the downtown. It was tough to find a hotspot out at Country Club Road, but that's just kind of an odd site where it sits. It just doesn't connect well with the cell towers. But downtown, I would hope, would be pretty good. And I don't know if we're close enough to catch the one from City Hall, because it's right across the street, so it might catch that one.
But is Wilder at this point, is Wilder not an option? Because if it's, I mean, is it or is it not? Or because if the importance is being located in downtown. Why not we ask, the library if we can rent out the Hayes building, because they can rent it out for 2 hours or the Hayes room. And then that way we can alleviate it, just contingency plans and build A to Z options.
Do we know if the library is currently ADA accessible?
Uh,
I think the
they're
elevator's
working on
out.
the
I'm
elevator.
not sure about that, but I mean, at this point, like, if it, I guess I gotta ask this question. Does it have to be ADA accessible if no one that that requires that ability to be there shows up? It has to be baked in initially,
But
because
usually, yeah, usually that's what you want to do, because you don't want to you don't want to be in a position of excluding somebody because somebody who does have a disability shows up. You want to have an accessible site if possible. Now, post flood, for the first couple of weeks and months, we were really in a pinch for finding accessible locations.
that's all
but
good. Let's keep the conversation moving as far as like, okay, but let's find some place that is ADA accessible and all that. If the library is not it, let's go somewhere else. But we don't have to drill in on it at this point. That's really like low. That's not a priority. We can find that. But if Wilder is not available, or we should just, if it's Wilder, let's do Wilder. But let's not bake in, if we get 50 people, Wilder's not going to be an option before we even use Wilder, because Wilder was an option before and 50 people didn't show up. And
I would
also, I just want to point out too, on the website, it says June 26th, Monday, June 26th on the website that you gave us, and June 26th is not a Monday.
For June, yeah, my agenda says June 24th, but maybe that got posted wrong by Audra. So yeah, I'd have to see where that. I'll check the website and see if that got put in the wrong spot. I looked at the paper
It's not
version.
that
I
it
didn't look
got
at the
put in the
online.
wrong spot. Let me send you, I'll send you the page. It's not that it got in the wrong spot. It's there, but this meeting today, are you guys still there? Yeah. This meeting today states that it's gonna be on Wednesday. And so, it's a part of the whole like environment of communication that we could be doing a better job at.
No, by all means, let me know, show it to me, and I'll figure out where the
Is there a
where
way
the
I can
issue came
share it
up.
to the group now? Can I share the screen?
Yeah,
Or
if you want to.
not share the screen. I just want to show the screenshot. It's not that hard. I mean, we can go to the website. If you go to the domain that you sent us, as far as the last, going to the website, going to our, let's see here, I'll send it this way.
I mean, I don't think the whole, if Mike needs to fix something on the website, I think.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
If you could just send
this
it to
adds,
him, I
but
don't
these
think
people
we
should be
need to
here.
all see it.
I'm simply saying these people should be here. And it starts with like communication, and it was a meeting for today, and it says it's Monday, the 26th. And
Carlton, I see what you're looking at.
yeah,
It's-
thank you.
It's on if you go to the city plan page, and there's a little thing that says summary updated today. Next commission meeting, Monday, June 26th. Yeah. Somebody, just fat fingered it. It looks like it's.
Yeah,
But-
so we can, I mean, I
Yep.
It's not
think,
about being fixed. It's just about being aware that people may not attend things because the information is not being put on the public site correctly. That's my point. We can
Yep.
move on now.
Okay. I will
okay.
follow up with
Maria,
everyone on that one. Thank you.
I just want to go back to Maria.
Yeah.
'Cause you're about to speak.
So one, I don't know that we could have it at Wilder Arts on, is it July 26th?
I think, is it the 22nd? I want to say
The
it's the
22nd.
22nd.
22nd. It's a Monday.
We have a summer camp going on in there where they're building like a pop-up comics cart. And so
Okay.
space is going to be occupied by a comics cart. But I was going to say, Katie Trout is very interested in having people attend the public meeting, the next public meeting. And I was wondering, maybe we can just consult with her and see if she can use her downtown business contacts to find somewhere that might be ADA accessible, large enough, another like fun spot, I think.
What about the senior center? Is that,
Yeah, the senior center was going to be where I was going to suggest. That's always one that can work out. It's ADA accessible. It's in the downtown. Most people know where it is when you say the meeting's at the senior center. Most people already know where that is, so it's a pretty safe space.
Okay, that sounds great. So we'll look at the senior center, or Mike, you'll follow up with Katie about a potential
Yes.
downtown. Okay, great. And just the last little thing I just wanted to make sure, are these meetings are being posted on Front Porch Forum, right? I mean, which,
This one isn't, because this one's just a regular planning
oh,
commission
not
meeting for
this
you
one,
guys
but I
to
mean
discuss.
the public input meetings. Is
Yeah,
that
Evelyn
to-
Evelyn was holding off on posting on doing her media blast because we were trying to get the storyboard cleaned up and put on. And we've got this technical issue that last time we said, hey, can you fix it? They fixed it in like 2 hours. This time we said fix it, and it's been a week and a half and we haven't gotten it fixed yet. So we're still trying to get the storyboard just to turn off a box. And it doesn't really matter. We can put it on, but as you scroll down, it asks you to sign into ArcGIS. And we don't want to have anything that's going to start confusing people and people think, well, now I got to sign into this. I can't do this. All you got to do is hit cancel and you can keep going. But we just want to get that box off of there. And we know it can happen because we did it for the first 3 storyboards. We just have to get it turned off for the next 3 storyboards. So when we reached the point that it was getting into last week and you, Ariane and Maria decided to just not do public input for this week, she's got things queued up and she's already pushed out a few things about the July meeting for the public input. So we're starting that push and she's going to have a more aggressive push on those going forward, to let people know about the July 8th and the July 22nd.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not a public PR person, but at a minimum, we want to have it on the city's website, Facebook page, Front Porch Forum, send it to all the committees. And then if other folks have other ideas for where we could post it, feel free to let Mike and Evelyn know. We'll try to get a more, even though it's July, which is tough, perhaps we can get a more robust turnout for some of the next meetings. And I think, yeah, having Katie help will be also great for Montpelier Live. Okay, so that's the chair section. So now we have general business comments from the public. See, we have Peter Kelman here. What would you like to share with us, Peter?
Well, just 3 points. Public input sessions that are barely attended by members of the public have very little value and no validity whatsoever. By validity, I mean, one can't at the end of the day say, oh, the public had an opportunity to have input. The process to date has obviously not drawn very many people, and I haven't heard anything that would suggest that it's going to draw many people going forward. Although, Ariane, the points you just made are good, except that communication, as Carlton just observed, is not just a matter of doing it, but doing it accurately. And Evelyn is only one person. I'm not even sure she's full-time. She's certainly not full-time on this project. She has many other things to do. And there have been, right along throughout this whole process, there have been errors, omissions, inconsistencies, stuff that can't be seen, even though that you're sent there to see it. I think it's kind of troubling to think that this is our public input process. Secondly, the online versions, as Mike just said, continue to be a problem. If you are dependent on if you're on a proprietary platform and dependent on a vendor to do things because, again, Evelyn is only one person and she doesn't really have the technical expertise to do it. I think it is a big mistake to be doing this exclusively online. Mike says, oh, of course, the storyboards won't be at the table. Right, of course, they won't be at the table. That's why I said, I'll say again, I think that the content of the chapters needs to be in a PDF form where people can pick it up. They do not have to go to a storyboard. Donna Bates spoke very persuasively. Some people just can't look at a screen like that. It makes them nervous or nauseous or whatever. I happen to have pretty much experience with people who have that kind of difficulty. I really think you need to reconsider being so dependent on an online presence. I know it's supposed to draw people in, but I don't think it actually does. And third, there are so many problems with the content of the chapters. It is filled with errors, omissions, inconsistencies, and worse, it is not addressing the Montpelier of today, let alone the Montpelier of the rest of the decade and into the 2030s. How many people who are on the Planning Commission today have been present during the building since 2018? This is Mike's plan. Mike is the only one who's been consistently working on this. Now, Kirby got quite involved and wrote some very good prose chapters, rewrites of the original. They're gone because they've been taken over by this online version, which doesn't really explain things as well, I think, as what I read, at least in the housing chapter, that Kirby did. Kirby, Mike, and me are the only people who've really been involved in this pretty much since 2018. I don't think, how many of you have had a chance to really dig in and look at this, let alone the public? And the public hasn't really had great access to it for all the reasons that Mike and Carlton and Ariane implicitly just made the comment of. I think I would urge you to be honest and step back and say, what is realistic and how is this plan going to be used or misused? My concern is the misuse of the plan. I know from going to DRB meetings, from going to Planning Commission meetings and so forth, city council meetings, people use this plan to promote their own views. They say, oh, this is inconsistent with the city plan. They weaponize it. They weaponize the city plan. So if you're going to create a plan, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be a plan that makes very clear that these are guidelines or whatever it is, saying this is not the holy writ. You cannot, and by the way, the people who use it are not just NIMBYs, they're also people in city government. I've heard Bill Fraser say half a dozen times, I heard Kevin Casey say half a dozen times, this is consistent or this is inconsistent with our, it wasn't called the city plan then, with the master plan. Baloney. If this is the process that we're building this thing on, you cannot be citing this as holy writ. This is a flawed document. It will be a flawed document. It needs to be a dynamic document, one that can change easily, one that can adapt to floods, one that can adapt to the tornadoes, one that can adapt to fires like at RK Miles. We're not just talking about flooding. This is not the only resiliency we need. We need overall resiliency to climate change or to unforeseen things like the pandemic. And right now, this is being written like it's looking backwards. Look at all the strategies. They are almost all continuations of things we've been doing. What about the future? Thank you.
Here, 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 here.
Okay, well, thank you, Peter. We have heard your comments and I made notes. I do think we are working to incorporate some of your comments such as, we talked to Mike about having a copy editor for the plan. I do think it would be good, Mike, to have some printouts in some way, and we can talk more about that, but I do agree that for some people going online may not be easy to, digest the information. But I do think, one of the reasons we want it online is that I think that makes it easier to respond to updating the plan. And we have talked about, kind of revisiting the plan once a year and making updates. But to me, that's a good reason to have it on the web, because I think that's easier to update. But I don't want to get into a long back and forth, but I want you to know that we did hear you and we are working to incorporate comments and we'll continue to try to improve. I know that the process has been imperfect, but we're doing the best that we can, I would say. I don't know if any other commissioners have.
I agree with you, sir. I feel like I'm in the, I don't know where, the tail end or the beginning of, or what have you, of a book that has been written before I even gotten here, and everybody involved is just kind of catching on. But it's like an escalator that's already going, and everyone on it knows more about it than I do, and it's just a matter of, just staying on long enough to get it. But I definitely feel like I'm not a part of a master plan, so to speak. And I don't think anyone is, because we don't know what we don't know. And so, and I probably have the most time out of everybody. I still don't know.
Ariane, can I just clarify one thing? I don't want, it's not a back and forth issue. My concern is not that it's on the web. I think it should be on the web, but I think it should be PDFs. My concern is putting it on this proprietary platform that making changes. I'm sorry, it is not going to be easier. I know that you've said that we're in your professional life, it's easy to make changes on things. It's not. Look at the problems that we haven't had a successful getting just the original on in a way that without going what Mike described. It's not going to be easy. And Evelyn is only one person. She's got lots to do, and she's not a technical person. And also there's no redundancy, so that the date problem that Carlton mentioned, the misspelling of Nikki's name, there are tons of mistakes that are made, and which are, I'm not blaming anyone, honestly, but you've got to have backup. So don't build a system that is dependent on a capacity that we just don't have. I think it should be on the web. I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the web, but this interactive thing that this company did is not going to work. I guarantee you, it's not going to work.
SP, you're speaking of SP group. I agree.
I think it's
But that's
SE.
not the point.
I mean, I
That's not
think
the
that,
point.
I think
Sorry.
we have to defer to Mike on that. And, honestly, some of these issues seem like staffing, which is always, I don't know, I work at an agency that's always understaffed, so
Because that's
with the
called
amount of work that we do. So I assume the city has a similar kind of issue. So I don't know, Mike, if you want to respond to that,
Yeah, I mean, it's the platform that this is being put together on is not proprietary. It's ArcGIS, and we at the city have our own license, but we aren't. In order to get this project to move through, we need to have help. So we hired somebody, a different group, SE Group, who also has the platform, and they're going to be building out our site for us, and then it's going to be put onto our GIS account. When that happens, a lot of these go away. The trick comes in is they're building in the ArcGIS website, and then they have to take a page out and give it to us to put on our website. And that's where we're having an issue, is trying to get that handoff done, because then the handed off piece is looking for the site license. When this gets adopted, that those types of technical issues go away. And we have a number of the staff that have a lot of experience with this type of website, and there are a lot of people in the community, if we needed to make updates, that we could reach out to them. Our new planning and zoning assistant that starts next Monday, he has a master's degree in GIS. He is a GIS expert, so he is very familiar with these types of things. So we do have the technology, we do have the stuff in-house, and you know, as I said, I mean, this has been a decision that we have worked on as a committee and a commission. It was a proposal that was made, but it was a decision. I don't make decisions, I make proposals and recommendations, and it was a recommendation that the commission agreed in the past that this was the direction we wanted to go to. And that's why we've continued to pursue down this path. And we're using SE Group and their experience to go through and basically build out what we propose to do. And for all of its issues and little things that we've had to deal with, I've been, you know, for me, I've put a lot of personal of just a lot of my own personal passion into this project to try to and you know, I have a lot of concern that, you know, I was really worried, you know, is this going to actually work? I mean, we put a lot of effort into it. Is it going to actually work? And I've been really happy over the past, you know, 6 weeks of, especially the implementation plan boards are really, really, really coming together well. And you know, I really like the way these next 3 storyboards came out. I think they're really nicely done. And I think as we go through and continue, again, this is not the public hearing process. This is the public input process, and we're going to have a lot of public input out of a long period of time, 6 months, 5 months, to go through and keep making these iterations better. We aren't coming here, and this is what the complaint would do. If we had this all wrapped up and we came in, Peter would be complaining, this is a done deal. This is a done deal. You guys aren't even looking for public. It's not. We're coming here with very much saying, we expect this to change, and we are changing this as we're getting public input. We're like, that's a good idea. Let's make that change. That's a good idea. Let's make that change. And we're making a very iterative process. I think by the time we get to September and October, we're going to have a really great product. And I think you're all going to be happy with it. And I really hope that's where we get to, because I think when I show you a few of the things that we've gotten done over the past week or two, you know, I hope you guys are, you know, happy with the changes that we're making, and that you guys will give us a green light to make more changes. And again, this is your product, your project, and we're just here to kind of make that a reality. But yes, as much as it's my project, it's your project. You have to approve it. I'm just making recommendations. Yes, Carlton.
I mean, I'm trying to use like I said, urgency over anger. But I really sympathize with Peter, because I don't feel like I don't feel like it's our project. I feel like there are things that are being done. There's wording, there's sleight of hand. I just put it out there because it doesn't matter for me. I'm not I feel like my intelligence is being questioned. Like, Mike, you've been in this for a long time, and like the fact that we're already building in this is going to take a long time. These are defeatist words. These are low vibrational. We should be more aspirational than that, because time is not of the essence at this point.
Well, Carlton, just to share, as somebody who's been part of the planning commission since believe this process has started, You know, I'm sorry that you weren't on the planning commission earlier, but there was a
You don't have
lot
to
of.
apologize. There's no apology. I'm
Okay,
coming up to speed just
I'm
as
just
you are.
saying, there was a lot of work. I remember a lot of meetings, and I think Aaron remembers this too. There's a lot of meetings where we went very carefully over the language and the proposed goals and all the.
And it's not
All the
about us.
initial,
It's about
all
the
the
public.
initial,
It's not
I just,
about us,
hey
though.
Carlton, can I finish, please?
Sure thing.
All the initial outline and wording came from the committees. The planning commissioners worked on it. Is it what everybody wants? No, it's not perfect, and I'm sure our processes are never perfect. But I just wanted to share that, you know, although you weren't on the planning commission, there was a process and there was a participation by the planning commission in the original, you know, outline from the committees.
Right. And then let me ask, I'm just asking this, how much was the public engaged about it? Because it doesn't matter what we do in
Well,
the vacuum.
the idea of having the committees come up with the aspirations and goals and strategies initially is that is
But who are we
how the
consulting for
public
those
is
aspirations
committing.
and goals? Who are we consulting for the aspirations and goals ourselves?
So Carlton, at the outset of this process, there was a very deliberate step-by-step process by which the planning commission reached out to the relevant subcommittees within the town apparatus. So there was a lot of consultation with the various subcommittees, which fed into developing the goals and aspirations that are reflected in the storyboards that you see today. So the
And
process.
I'm asking, I'm asking how much
hold
of
on.
the
I'm
public were
trying to answer
asked
your
about
question.
this?
I'm trying to
Okay.
answer your question. Let me do that.
Do we have time?
So
Because
the planning commission decided to engage with those subcommittees to try to gather as much information that we could. What happened over the next 4 years was calling those, from those discussions, gathering that information, calling it, distilling it down to what we have now. And the process was always contemplated having public input and feedback once we got all that information together and put it in a presentable form. That's where we are today.
well, when you said it was always contemplated and you have, we already have a plan that we've used before. So what is the contemplation? Where are we starting? Are we starting from 2017 contemplation, or are we starting from as we go with our editing? When do we stop contemplating and actually engage in a way where, Mr. Kelman feels like he's a part of it and others?
Yeah. I mean, all I can say is, Carlton, is again, I think what Mike and Ariane and I are trying to tell you is we have always welcomed Peter's input. We have taken that to heart. We have made changes. Some of those changes have been made, some have not. This is part of the process. Like, I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
Okay, well,
Like,
let me form
what
it
it is
in
we're
a way you
contemplating.
can
I'm
understand.
saying,
Let me form it in
I'm
a way.
saying
You
that
said
the
you didn't
planning
understand my
commission-
question. You said you didn't understand my question, so don't answer a question you don't understand. So let me form it in a way so that you understand. What I'm stating to you is this: Mr. Kelman is the only person who really comes to things. I see legacy issues regarding the planning commission and the plan. I see also decisions made in a way where people are comfortable with what they're doing. I don't see there are people who have major money involvements and they're on the volunteer side of things. So as far as decisions are made, it feels like there's decisions made in public. And then those public decisions to satisfy the public are agreed upon publicly, but then we take that somewhere else. And in the wording, where the public doesn't have time to read the wording, we have June 26th for a meeting type of stuff going on. And you can be a part of it for decades. I've watched the planning commission meetings for decades. The wordings are not matching with what people are saying, and the public is just getting worn out. And we know this. So I'm just saying, let's just stop the low vibration, slow drift of I don't know what's going on, because the urgency is like me, I'm boots on the ground, and there may be other things that I'm not seeing, But the fact that we have to go back and forth until it gets to the public, let's just present it to the public sooner. Because the public is smart.
So I'm sorry, is there a question in there?
No,
Okay,
Can I just clarify one thing? I was on one of those committees. I was on the Housing Task Force. And what we submitted bears very little resemblance to what ended up being.
exactly. Y'all ain't paying attention. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, sir. I thought I was on mute. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that going to the committees in 2018, which is when it was, very little that those committees submitted, and even some of the committees weren't even appropriate, like having the Public Arts Committee being the one that, so of course the plan ended up being all about public visual arts, as was pointed out. That's just because you went to committees doesn't mean that you really have tapped the right people, the right citizens. And I think Carlton is right. Yeah, and Aaron's right. You guys have listened to me. I'm just one person. I know quite a few people who don't have the time that I have or the stupidity that I have to keep trying. This has not been a real public engagement process. It just hasn't been.
Okay, well, at this point, I guess I would welcome. I don't personally, given that we do, I believe, have a time, we have to have a city plan by December of 2025. Is that right, Mike? Or else
Yeah.
we face some consequence, which I'm blanking on at the moment. To me, all processes are imperfect, and I welcome thoughts on how we can do it next time. I do not want to go back to the drawing board. I recognize that our process was imperfect. Yes, the Planning Commission did substantially change a lot of what the committees presented to us, but I thought that was our job as people who are appointed to the Planning Commission. That's how I understood it. Again, if you want to send a written critique of the process and how you would do it differently next time, I think we can chew on that. But
That's not what I'm suggesting. But by the way,
well, then what are you suggesting? I don't understand.
no, I am suggesting three very concrete things. One is go back and get the words that Kirby and other people on the commission actually wrote before it got turned over to the SE group and put on into the magic thing. Those are the words that should be put out on PDFs online and have people respond to those and make a real effort through the committees. I suggest that's number two. Go back to the committees, the appropriate committees, including things like the Social and Economic Justice Committee, committees that you might not have tapped either because they didn't exist or because they don't have a particular chapter. But run the whole thing by the thing CJAC and MEAC and the committees that really cut across, and ask them to respond. Have them have committee members respond. That would be members of the public who have the time and who have the interest. As for it being rewritten by the commission, other than Kirby, I think this has been primarily written by Mike. All right. And I think that look, you guys are all volunteers. But number three is, I think that maybe divide up among you. Each of you take a chapter and go through it the way I did. Read it. Pick up the errors, pick up the omissions, ask questions. That's what a copy editor asks questions. It says to the author, did you mean this? Because it sounds like that's what you meant. You've got to have a more robust, I'm not saying start from scratch, but go back at least and get what Kirby wrote. Kirby wrote some damn good stuff. I don't see it anymore. I think it's gone. So that's for this time. That's not for
And
next time.
let's be clear. You've got to stop making accusations about things you don't know, about saying things like, well, Mike said this and the fire chief is this.
Well,
I only made you just said most of this is written by Mike.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well,
This has been a product. My product that I wrote are the things that went to the committees at the start, because committees shouldn't start with a blank slate of paper. So I gave them outlines of structures of everything. And I said, this is your place to start. And they made changes, and they did things I agreed with, and they did things I didn't agree with. But it didn't matter. It wasn't my plan anymore. And they sent it to the planning commission, and I said, these are the things I liked. These were the things I didn't like. And they made a number of changes. A lot of changes I didn't like. A lot of changes I liked. But it doesn't matter at this point. This is not my plan. You can't go out and tell people, well, Mike wrote this. Mike did not write this. I did not write this.
I
And
said
so let's
Kirby-
be
the
clear.
Kirby and
Let's
Mike
be
wrote most of
clear.
it.
When it went to SE Group, the Planning Commission reviewed and approved them, and they made edits to what SE Group had put together, including going through and saying, we want you to take these pieces out and put in exactly what we wrote. So they had initially gone through and done some editing for putting things into the synergies box. And the Planning Commission went back and said, put exactly what we wrote. Things had changed in the implementation strategies. They said, take out what you've edited and put in exactly what we said. And then there were places that they said, no, we do need to make the editing that you recommend at the start. So these things in the storyboards have been reviewed by the Planning Commission. Now, it may be a different Planning Commission than sits here today, and that's fine. We can go through and re-review them and make additional edits. But this commission has its fingerprints all over this, for good or bad. And as Ariane and others have pointed out, it's not expected to be perfect at this point. But at some point, we've got to start going to the public and seeing, what do you like? What do you not like? And that's where we're at right now. Where did we hit right on the mark? Where have we not hit on the mark, so we can make this a better product? And that's where this is at, and that's where this is going. And as I said, I'm very happy with where things are right now, what I'm seeing right now. I'm very happy with, personally, professionally, and I'm not making edits in the background. So if Carlton, if you're thinking I'm making edits in the background, it gets approved
No,
and
I'm not.
somebody's
Look,
tweaking
there's no-
words in the
we-
background, I'm not. They're
we don't
not.
need to
I
float.
will
We don't
let
need
you
to
know
float
when I
any
make changes.
hypotheticals. We don't need to float hypotheticals. I'm just simply trying to keep the sunlight on everything. That's all.
Yep. So everything, the changes, that's why a lot of times you'll see there may be comments of, well, nobody's made a change to these goals. Well, I have specifically said I'm not going to make any changes to the goals or the aspirations, but we had a conversation at the last meeting about the strategies, and I said, can I go through and make the amendments to update? Because Peter and others have pointed out, and it's true, these had been adopted, we had reviewed them as a commission starting in 2019, 2020, 21, 22. So we're reviewing these things over time. Well, by the time we get to the end, we're ready to package this and start going to the public. Some of those 2019, 2020 things are a little bit dated, and we didn't go back and update them because we didn't want to keep going around and around in circles. But what we did do, you guys said to me, for the strategies, go through and update them. We didn't change them for policy. We changed them for its, if it said we should adopt this program, and in 2023 we adopted it, well, we should go through and say we should continue this program because it's already in effect now. When we wrote it, it was a proposal. Now it's reality. So those are the little changes that we're making right now that Evelyn and I are going through and making changes on.
Mike, can I ask you and Ariane a question? If you want to really put this out to the public, would it not be appropriate to put it out to the committees and have each committee take responsibility for reviewing it, and to get people come to their meetings? You are not going to draw people. I don't care whether it's in Wilder Arts or the, how many people have you had so far? A dozen? That's not the public. People don't have the time to do it. In the summer, it's going to be a disaster. So
and we intend to go back to the different commissions with the products. We're just trying to, as we said, we're, especially Evelyn and I are working on a little bit of an iterative process to take the comments we've gotten so far And a lot of them have been your suggestions to go through and say, this should be written differently or in this way. And that takes time to go through each one of these, to go through and carefully review them and bring them up and kind of make a better product that we can go and take to the commissions, so they've got a good product. They don't have a product, as you said, full of errors and outdated material. Let's get these things where we want them and then go to the committees, and the committees again. Nothing that we're putting out, even after we do all these edits, is considered a final product. We're still making them, but we want to get to a next step where we've got these in really good shape. We're good with the format. We're good with the content. Now let's have a really good discussion on the policy, because that's what we want to have. This is all about having a policy discussion. What are our goals, and are these strategies going to help us accomplish our goals? And that's what we want to be able to take. And I intend to take them back to all the various committees so they can get their input. I want this to be as smooth of a process when we get to it, whether it's in the fall, whether it's in the winter. I want a nice, smooth process when we go to public hearings, because I want to have as many people who've had their fingerprints on this to go through and say, we've seen it, we've looked at it, and we feel this is a good product.
Okay.
I just hope you can get people to go through some of those other chapters the way I went through the housing chapter. I don't have the time or the expertise or the interest in all of the chapters. So unless you're getting someone people to really sit down and spend some time on things that matter, get someone for transportation, get somebody for economic development, get to really comb through it. And if possible, again, I would really urge you to go back to CJAC and Social and Economic Justice Committee and some of these other committees, the ADA committee, get some of the voices of people whose voice is not generally heard. I think that's some of what Carlton is getting at.
Okay, well, I think Mike said he will go back to the committees, and we should move along with our agenda because we do have some other business to get to today. Okay, so the next item on the agenda was preview the next 3 chapters. Mike, were you thinking that we just like look at them online, or?
Yeah, I can pull them up. Do you guys have a preference for which one? Do you want to look at the storyboards, or do you want to look at the implementation plans? I could pull up either. The storyboards aren't on the website yet, again, for the same reasons I mentioned, but the implementation plans are online.
I think you should pull up the storyboard since we can access the implementation strategies.
All right. I got bumped out of my Outlook where I had it. All right, hold on. Go now. I had it pulled up because I was all ready for it, and then I must have X'd out of my Outlook. Now I got to find it again. Okay. Been and there's the pop-up box that we are trying to get rid of. So again, this, like the other chapters, we kick off with the chapter title and the subchapter. And so most of what we talk about with utilities and facilities, the utilities are usually 4 types of utilities. So we're usually looking at water, sewer, stormwater, and district heat. And then facilities are any of the government buildings. So we're not really talking about the services and things that happen at the field. So think about the baseball field is the facility. What happens at the baseball field is a community service. So usually you're going to have recreation talked about in community services, which we do, but the facility would probably be talked about here. And our plan for the utilities and facilities are quality and quantity of municipal services and utilities are well administered, sufficient to meet current and future demands, and to further net zero compliance. So a lot of these from a structural standpoint kind of remain the same. We've got our planning context. We talk about the municipal services, and each one of these shows up on the right as it goes through the outline of the plan. Talking about each one of the utilities first. That was water. Then we go to wastewater. It shows all of the, and again, any of these can be moved around, kind of pinned in here. But yeah, if you're out here, we can move around the screen to look at the different areas where the sewer and water lines go. We have a section on stormwater management. Again, these are all the stormwater pipes. So we've got a very well mapped out system. The Public Works Department has a lot of information that we can grab from. These are district heat lines. And again, it's talking about in the left, giving a summary of each one of these. The major electric transmission that exists in town, the various phase 3 powers, GMP power. And again, a lot of these are required. So this is now a private utility. And then our municipal facilities. These are the locations of all the different municipal facilities that we have, including playgrounds, recreation centers, and also not just municipal, but other ones like the library are also included here. And again, you've got the ability to scroll through the entire thing. And then at the end, it gives you also the ability to just go through individually and reconnect. And again, each one of these has, of course, the ability to zoom in and move around. So that's how the boards are set up. So and same as the other ones, it then moves into synergies. Do you know that the water treatment plant provides 1.7 million gallons of water to 3,100 customers in Montpelier and Berlin? I think these are district heat lines, I think, but and then again, the aspirations and goals, these were approved. I've reviewed each one of these. So this time I've gone through to make sure that they're all correct. I've reviewed them all. The implementation summary, this is the part that was written by you guys and plugged in. Who's involved? This is, again, what we had put together. It talks about Department of Public Works does most of this, and the various committees, various other departments, like the Recreation Department and others are the others. And then at the bottom, there is an opportunity, because we're in this format, you need to sign in to be able to do the survey. And again, this is the hiccup that we're trying to get fixed for the next time. Do you guys have any questions or comments on this one before I pop open the next one? And again, we'll have this up hopefully within the next day or two, and then you guys can carefully go through and read them all. But overall, that's kind of the information piece, what we're trying to do. The energy plan, I kind of like the way this one came out. I was kind of happy with this one. And there we go again. Has the introduction to what the energy chapter is all about, introducing the net zero. Generally talking about the consequences of different things, landslides, flooding that result from climate change. So what they put together, and this was, I thought, pretty cool, was they were able to tap a lot of different data. So existing renewable energy, these are all the rooftop solar PV sites in the city of Montpelier. So also talks about there are only a couple of ground mounted sites. Solar thermal, so these are sites that are used for heating hot water. These are the biomass sites, so burning wood, so the wood chip plant for the city, and National Life has its own biomass plant, and a couple other places have biomass as well. You can click on a couple things for electric charging stations. And the bioliquid fuels. And then this continues on. So this one actually has kind of a continued, the planning context kind of keeps going to get into talk about some of their accomplishments. So I think these are the goals. So by 2050, fossil fuel will be eliminated entirely and 100% of the energy needs, municipal, residential, commercial, will be met renewably. And the 2030 goal is to have 100% of energy used for municipal government operations, thermal, electrical, and transportation to be renewable or offset. So also part of the planning context, MEAC and the SE group put together what were some of the major accomplishments, including the capital district heat. So this was a project that was completed 2014, maybe just before I got here. It was worked by my predecessor, a lot of work they did. Net metering sites. We are going to go through and add to this page because this doesn't include any of the city's net metering. So we actually have, and it's not shown here, but up on Log Road, if you drive out Elm Street, past the rec fields and past all that, as you're maybe a mile to the end of the town, there's a little road on the left called Log Road. And the city actually, there's actually a solar farm up there, and all the electricity from that solar farm goes to power City Hall. It net meters City Hall, the police station, the fire station, and a lot of other buildings that the city has. And we also have a second site in the town of Sharon. So we should show which buildings are also net metered. This is showing the water resource recovery facility and the accomplishments there. That is set up for capturing methane, and we don't yet use it to make electricity, but we could. But we do use it to burn the methane to dry solids and heat buildings. Then, like the others, we're talking about what are the synergies, how we relate to the other chapters. Again, this is all exactly what was approved by the Planning Commission. The implementation summary, these were all approved by the Planning Commission. Who's involved? These are all, again, were the pieces that were by you guys. So again, I thought this one came out really nice. I thought they did a good job with especially the fact that it added the accomplishments and these other pieces. I thought it was nicely done. They did a good job with the pictures and the notes. I thought this was a nice one.
Mike, could you go all the way up to the top, like the introductory paragraph?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just curious, because I mean, it seems like all of this is about meeting that net zero requirement. Is there anywhere that it talks about like what the current state of fossil fuel use is?
So where we are at with some of those kind of those benchmark goals.
Well, we could see like
Um,
where, I think that map is really cool, lower down,
yeah,
where you can see like all of the different renewable energy structures in place now. But I'm curious if it wouldn't be helpful to know like kind of like the bad story, like how many homes right now are uh powered by fossil fuels. I assume it's like every other house that's not on this map, Um, so kind of like see like how much we have to improve in order to meet these goals. And maybe we don't have that data, but I think it would be helpful to see like how much of a transition we're asking.
yeah, we do have a dashboard, and maybe that's also what needs to get added in, is maybe a link to the dashboard and a summary of, like you said, where we're at, because we've, again, like everything else, the dashboard they have and the information they have shows how much success we've had. We've gone from this really high amount and it's gone down, but
Yeah.
we're still far from being net zero. And maybe that could be, and that could be an infographic that maybe replaces. I think the information's good, but maybe with the accomplishments we need to have something that comes out at the end with
Like the challenges.
maybe one more piece of where we're at, where we have to go. Kind of, let's capture that last piece of, maybe it's just a graph, that bar chart that kind of,
Let me see like the
this
improvement
is
over time.
this is where we've made improvements. Oh, isn't that great? We've reduced the amount of electricity, but boy, we've got a long ways to go to meeting another goal.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I'll put that in. Peter, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, Mike, I agree that this is a quite a good one. And I believe one of the reasons it's quite a good one is because you have in fact continued with to work with MEAC, which is an activist committee, a committee that really has been in the trenches and pushed many of these ideas. And I think you should consider that might be why this is so good. I do have one question about all of these maps. Who is checking their accuracy? I know, for example, that I've got a solar rooftop solar, and my house is not shown in this. I know that I looked at the some of the housing maps, and I know that there are things that are not accurate. Who is checking the accuracy of these maps?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases we will need to at least put down the data reference. So that way, at least we know, because it may be that the data, this is pulled from, Green Mountain Power data 2018. And it might be that your system went on after that, and that's why it's not shown.
Actually,
But
a lot of systems went on after that. That's why if you're going to
I
be,
was just throwing that number out because I don't know what the data is, because it doesn't actually have on it in here when the data is accurate current to.
okay. Also, in the housing chapter, there are a lot of rental units that are not appearing. There are condos that are not appearing. There are somebody has either got to check or have a disclosure caveat that this is incomplete or this is old or whatever.
No, we're working on, I mean, yeah, for the housing one, which is done, we're already working on that. That's been a flagged issue that the data they were drawing from was not as accurate as the data, because I wanted them to use the grand list data. So we're trying right now to see how we can link to the grand list data, which has a more accurate data for, let's say, ADUs and condos. So we just want to make sure we're grabbing from the right data. So that's part of what we're trying to do right now with the second round. Is we're moving on to this, but Evelyn and I are still working on pieces that need to get updated. As we said, we sent in the information on this, but it hasn't been updated for the locations of those. Where was it? It was down here for the net metering ones. Those were sent last week. They clearly aren't updated yet for the net metering sites. We would like to get that updated, but yeah, I think the data references we need, so that way we and I don't know where structurally we would put that, but I'll work with them to kind of come up with whether it goes at the bottom of the text, in a thing that goes through data from this data source with a date, so that way at least we know that's where this comes from, and we can go back and either double check it or find if it's the correct source or the best source of information. So yes, good point. We'll get the data reference so we know where they are.
And Mike, also in terms of housing rental, since unlike Barry, we don't have a rental registry. We actually have no idea where all the rental places are. So I'm not sure that you're going to be able to get valid maps of those. So I'm just questioning whether it should be on it at all, because I'm sure that you've missed probably at least 25% of the rental units in the city, because we don't have a rental registry. We don't know.
Yep, and we'll have to see. Like I said, we're going to go through and do a little bit of a careful check on that one. And the last one real quick, again, same as the other one. I'm currently searching for a new picture. I don't like this picture. So I don't want a dirty public transit bus as my main kickoff picture.
A picture says 1,000 words, Mike, and you're right.
Yes, and that's a bad picture. Yeah, come ride public transit and our dirty buses on our dirty streets. So anyways, the primary, for everybody else who maybe hasn't gone through, the primary push of the transportation committees when they reviewed this and the planning commission was really to start to put all the other forms of transportation on equal footing with roads, as opposed to being kind of second class citizens. The idea was we really need to be thinking about walking and biking at the same and given the same level of investment and attention as we do to roads. Our roads are in bad shape. We do need to pay attention. We do need to do a lot, but that's really what they were trying to do, is to make sure that that's why we have a complete streets plan. That's why we have strategies for implementing that plan. So to cultivate a transportation system that treats all modes of transportation equally and prioritizes the safety for all travelers. So that kind of captures it. And then to support a societal shift to non-fossil fuel future for transportation. So I think that's a pretty good capture right there of what the two primary visions are for this chapter. So again, we've got this one, we've got just a Dropbox where you can go through and click through where the bus routes are, and metered parking where that exists in the city parking lots. So actually I'd have to kind of move everything over to kind of see that, but that's the idea. Again, you'd be able to click on these different boxes and show and we needed to have this disclaimer put in, which I'm glad to see they got that one in, because the plan has to talk about certain issues. Transportation plans, as I said, state law says you have to talk about certain things. One of them is rail lines. One of them is airports. Well, we don't have any airports, so we just simply say We don't have any, but they're located in Berlin and Burlington. A couple of signature projects, the Taylor Street Transit Center and the bike path were the two biggest transportation improvements that have happened over the last 10 years, both long-term projects that finally got completed. Oh, looks like they just grabbed the bite right out of it. So, 2018 map shown for now to be updated. So they did put this in. So this is our street typology. This is really our bread and butter for how we have a complete street. I won't go into it, but there are 7 different street typologies. And each one is itself functions for all users, walkers, bikers, public transit, cars, trucks. It's meant to cover all of them in a safe manner. So as speed limits increase, you have to have a bike lane, for example. As traffic increases, you have to put a sidewalk. And if traffic's at a certain level, sidewalk has to be on one side. Once it reaches a certain level, it needs it on both sides. In some cases, you can have on-street parking. Some cases you can't. And the idea is where you find, and this is true, where you find roads that are complete streets, they tend to operate very well. Where we have roads that are not complete streets, you have a lot of issues. So Berry Street, for example, is a notoriously difficult street. It's not a complete street. You can't safely bike it because you're being expected and asked to bike faster than people usually can. So any event, that's what the plan is. This is what we want in the future. Now, how do we get there? That's through the capital improvement plan. And the city uses the CIP to schedule repairs. This talks a little bit about how we do that. Bit of paving of Main Street. Must do better to address stormwater issues. So we now have systems for our street trees, which go through and actually filter the water. And Taylor Street is a prime example of a really 21st century street. The street trees actually collect the water, the stormwater, treat it. At the bottom of the tree well is the stormwater collection system. So the water goes in, goes through, some of it gets sucked up into the tree, and what gets left over then goes into the stormwater system, as opposed to going directly into a down inlet. It gets filtered through the trees. So it's a really neat process. We like to do that for more sections of town. Same thing, synergies. We're still looking for a fun fact. We're going to grab that. But for the most part, again, these I thought came out very nice. I thought these have kind of come out a little better than the first 3 did in really kind of doing a little bit of what I was hoping they would do. So that's why we're kind of going back to those first 3 to say, let's get these first 3 to kind of be more like these new 3. Because I think these 3 came out a lot better than the first 3. But any thoughts on transportation?
I mean, if you're happy with it, as far as I'm concerned, it's a great learning process for a bigger agenda that I have with Montpelier. Yeah, it doesn't include anybody here, but it's okay. Because when you say you're happy with certain things and with the interactive map, some of this stuff looks dated from like a tech standpoint, but you may be happy with it, but it's like, I'm not sure whether or not we really have the right eyes on it to even be considered something that needs to be public. That's all I have to say.
Okay, and I'm always open to, again, that's why we said it's an open and fluid process. If you look at it and say, this would be a better, or this information really isn't useful, let's find different information that tells a different story. That we will by all means just jump right in and find better data. If that's what the commission wants, we will remove a section to go through and say, let's not, we're showing you where the sewer and water lines were. Maybe that's not really important. Maybe what is important is X, and we can go out and try to find that data, Because the idea is this is meant to be the educational portion. This is not for the people who are trying to drill in to know exactly what the policy wonk is. This is for people who are like, I want to know about transportation in Montpelier. And I can read this and get an understanding of what's going on, what we're trying to do, and have a good sense of the big picture. This is your 50,000 foot. You want to know the details? Click on that box on the bottom that talks about the implementation strategy. And then you can start reading in on the nuts and bolts of what our aspirations, goals, and what our specific strategies are.
And so we
that's
have
how-
information regarding that people would actually want to do what you just described, because it sounds like that would be something that you would want to do instead of the general public, because that's not something the general public will probably want to. I'm just simply stating to you that all of this from a software standpoint, from a tech standpoint, is extremely dated. And also by the time it gets put out, none of this is going to be a factor. I mean, but we can keep going on it. It's just we're basically just building like books for a digital era. And I mean actual paper books instead of the digital era. The dynamics of it. I mean, the public can vote on it, but I'm just saying from a public standpoint, what we're even offering them is dated.
Okay.
I
Carlton, I'm
mean,
curious.
you got Sun Common who's gone out a bit. They're going bankrupt. You know, the track sell solar panels. I mean, that's been 10 years and 20 years. Some of them don't even like turn anymore with the sun. I'm just like the pictures, you know, yeah. So what, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say, Maria?
I was just curious, like, I'm curious to hear, like, how this, we're on the transportation one right now. Like, what are your ideas?
I'd much rather, because I've extensively traveled the country and looked at other websites, I'd much rather give you an idea of what other people are doing rather than my ideas, because I simply don't want to invent the wheel. So I'd be happy to share with you at another time at this point, some other websites from other cities, towns, and municipalities that may offer some more suggestions on how to go about this in a faster way as well. So that's my suggestion. And I know
Okay.
that we have time to fumble with, you know, presentations, but we don't have time for me to talk. So I'll shut up.
No, I would, if you could send like examples of that to me and Ariane and Mike, that would be great. I've been trying to look at what
I'll
other
work on it.
cities, like what their city plans look like, but I don't,
I would
I
go
would
to Fort
be-
Wayne, Indiana. I'd start with Fort Wayne, Indiana. I lived there because after I left here, I needed to be close to Chicago to truck. And I lived in it's called Cityscape. It was overlooking the semi-professional baseball team that was placed in there. It's like my dream is for our baseball team to have a new stadium, a new pool, and condos over in that area. That's kind of my future for Montpelier. So I'd say Fort Wayne, Indiana would be a great place to start. Then, you know, Pete Buttigieg's neighborhood, what is that? Is it Evanston or Indiana, anywhere Indiana, because the Rust Belt they had to recreate themselves. So they were very strategic and modern in how they presented themselves to the public. So I just say that I have conversations with some people who say, you know, Montpelier is different than any other town. Not necessarily, even if it is a capital. We're people, we're humans, and it's no different than any other place because a Walmart is within walking distance or driving distance. It's we don't need to reinvent the wheel. That's all. And we're paying these consultants money to, you know, tailor this however we want on interactive maps. Like there's the meter is ticking.
So do you mean like we should look up their city websites? Or like just like the city itself just seems more.
What are you asking me? What would you like to know?
like what websites do you think are cool? That's like what we do
I know,
at
but
work.
when
Is
you,
like,
but when you said that, when you said what, but when you said either the city website, which one would you like? The city website or,
oh, like you're saying, was it Evanston or
but what are you
Fort?
looking for? What would you like to see?
The
What are
two
you
cities that you,
Googling?
the two cities that you just mentioned in
But
Indiana.
what do you, I said Fort Wayne, Indiana. Try
Okay.
Well,
Googling.
could you, I mean, could you send us links of what you're talking
I
about?
stated I would later on in the
Great,
week and
okay.
not today. That's what I stated, yes.
Okay.
That's great. I just want to be mindful of, we want to approve the minutes and move the, look at the matrix, but, Peter, if you have one last comment, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mike, I would just say again, this one does bear the stamp of activist committees. And that cuts both ways. I mean, it's good because it means there are people, citizens who are, care and are involved, who put their stamp on it. But I do think that the commission needs to weigh a little bit, and this is true in the energy chapter as well, that there are also working people who have lived in Montpelier for many years, have homes they can barely afford, concerned about taxes, concerned about potholes, etc. So there needs to be a kind of I think, a balance of, these enthusiasm about bicycles and walking and so forth, but also a recognition that there are many people in this town who are pretty wedded to their gas guzzling cars, and they're residents too. And we've got to figure out a way to also address improvements in the roads and whatnot. So it's a tricky issue to balance those, and I hope you guys will all, as a commission, be thinking about it. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, and that'd be a great comment to make at the public input meeting too, if you're able to attend, but I think we should move on for the rest of our agenda, and just get a brief look at the matrix and then approve the minutes, because I can't stay past 7:30, so.
Okay, so yeah, the storyboards we won't go through, but they look very much the same. I do want to.
Is everybody out?
It's disabled. Is there a way that I can share, because I just Googled, it's not that deep. Can I share a downtown Fort Wayne, just so I can just get that off my plate, because I got other stuff to do. But this is a great starting point as an example. So is there a way I can share that to the team right now? Or should I just
In the
email it?
chat. Do you know how to put
It
There
this?
says
should be a
disabled. It says disabled for me right now.
Oh,
Chat is disabled.
I know how to
but
disable.
You
Yeah,
can
good.
share. You can share. Share the screen. I haven't disabled that feature.
Yeah, I don't want to share the screen because I don't want to make it about me and this Fort Wayne situation. I just want to send it to you all because, or you can just Google what I Googled, and that's Fort Wayne, Indiana. And then I would just go to the particular one that says American Planning Association, create great communities for all, and look at that. But again,
okay.
if I could just cut and paste and put it in the chat, you could all just get that, but that's disabled.
Yeah, it has to be disabled under Vermont law. So it's not because I'm being grumpy, it's because I'm not allowed to anymore.
Yeah, I'm not implying that you were grumpy. The fact that you brought that in, I just want to come back and say I'm not implying that, but thank you.
No, I was just saying it's sometimes I can't. We've got powers and we've got things they've said we're not supposed to be able to do. So I did want to just show this up. This is what Evelyn sent to me. So if you remember back to what the storyboards actually look like, and we talk about the strategies, and you'd see the stars across the top. and then there'd be a description, and then on the right-hand side, you'd have the priorities. This is the new format. Just wanted to let you guys know, and this captures some of what the comments were that Peter gave. So this is just one. So this used to say historic surveys program down here with new in parentheses, and then there was the description. What we've done is to shift, or what we're recommending doing is to shift this up and say the title is now Create New Historic Surveys Program. That would be the title. It's on the top, so it's the priority, as opposed to saying implement goals at the top, which kind of didn't, that's not the important thing. The implement goals is down here. What's important is the title, and so we've got that up there. We've got it bigger. We still have the description. The priorities and the costs are now down here at the bottom with the responsible party and the implementation goals. So it's going to look a little different, but the content is mostly going to stay the same. So this is what we're going to update the boards to go through. I just need to plug this in before my need to tether myself in before my headset turns off. So that was just what I wanted to show you. If there are any questions on that before I jump over to the matrix.
That's good.
Which I think looks better. I think it addresses a lot of Peter's comments, which were good. It'll be clear. We still have to go through, as I said, updating and making sure that it's better wordsmith, better worded. We're going to go through all those. Now, one more. Share screen. All right. So this was the 2024 comments that we were talking about. This is what the matrix looks like. I sent a copy of this to you. And I've been going through, mostly I've been trying to enter all of Peter's comments. And so the first comment is about what's the comment being made. The second one is the staff's comments or recommendations. And the third is what you do with it. So in some cases, there's no action at this time. The orange ones are ones I've flagged that I need to do something, or yellow I need to follow up with. The green ones are something that's done. We've agreed to do it, or maybe you've agreed we're not going to make a change. And so those go. These are ones we all talked about, but these are all the ones we still have to go through. And I don't know if we want to just start in here and work our way down, but just to give you an idea, there's a lot of comments, and this is what I've been trying to push through. I wanted to get this done so I could post it online. And again, as people give us more comments, we will add them in. We're at number 60 right now. So gives a little bit of a flavor of what we're up to, and maybe we'll just jump in and have some conversation about this was a recommendation from somebody who sent one in to the recommendation to apply for Catalyst grant programs, which is, I didn't know what that was, so I had to look it up. It's the Northern Borders Grant this fall to modernize water infrastructure, and staff comments is we already have plans to apply for Northern Borders and to get on the priority list. So I don't know if there's much follow-up we need to do with that one. If that's just, like I said, people give us a comment, we will respond to the comments, and this goes through all of them. City should consider potential for artists and resources for keeping artists here on a temporary basis. And I believe this is what is intended in the artist in residence implementation strategy. So I think we've already kind of addressed that, but it would be up to you to say, yes, that's fine. Or Mike, go find something and make a different recommendation for us to consider. So that's what would go in here. If there's something in yellow, I would go through and follow up on that in the future to make sure we've got it. And by the time we get done, I will have turned all these yellow ones to green.
So is this Northern Borders thing, is that that seems like a utilities, is that part of our Yeah, I haven't,
This was a request that was made in the housing section. And the reality is we are planning to apply for more northern borders, but it is actually to address the housing, because that's one of the grants we're looking for, to extend the water lines out to the country club road site to help pay for the infrastructure out there. So it may be one. I don't know how specific we want to get with our strategies. We don't usually get as specific as apply for this grant. But again, that's a question of how much do we want to get into those details. Usually that's applying for grants is a little bit more of an operational piece. Kind of like you wouldn't say, let's go out and do a request for proposals on something. It's like, well, tell us what the project is, and applying for grants and doing requests for proposals is just part of doing the project. So my sense would be I wouldn't get that specific in our list of strategies. But that's, again, up to the board as to how much detail you want to get into in those recommendations.
So can I just ask a process question? I mean, what do you need? You said you want to put it up on the website. And I don't think we're going to be able to get through this whole list
No,
tonight. Can it be a working document on the website, or?
we'll keep adding to it and keep putting it on the website. I just want everybody to know that if they don't see something in the right-hand column, that means the commission hasn't made a decision. So just because somebody makes a recommendation to do X and the staff recommendation in the middle is not to do X, the commission may eventually do X. And so I just, as long as people understand that's how this works. And we've done these for all the zoning stuff. And eventually what we usually ask the commission to do, and in the past, as this really gets long and gets big, sometimes commissions will go through and say, can you just kind of highlight the ones that are the key policy ones? Or if it was Kirby or some of the planning chairs before that, we would kind of go through and do a quick thing to go through and say, yeah, we can't sit here as a planning commission and review 150 individual comments, but we can go through and say, this one's okay, this one's okay, let's talk about this one. This one I agree with staff, this one I agree with staff. And then we can go through, and I mean, everybody here is going to have all of them, and you can certainly go through and say, Mike highlighted these in these colors because we talked about them and we think we agree with the staff recommendation on those. And then we can always bring them back in, or we can individually talk about each one of them. But usually you will find a way, because this is here for you, not for me, to make sure that we've captured as many of the comments. And if somebody says, I didn't see my comment in there, but we can add it in. But the idea is we'll try to capture it in as much of a realistic sense. And a lot of these are things that I agree with. So sometimes it'll be like, this is wrong. I agree, it's been fixed. We can basically paint it green and it's done.
Okay, I guess just and I would love to hear from other commissioners. Just as a process thing, it's hard for me to, I think, look at this in a meeting, especially given that it's 7:30. So I wonder, can we just, can we have the commission commit to looking through this at a certain time? I mean, obviously we have to go through some of these items and respond to them, but it sounds like we can put it on the website with some preface that says the planning commission has not responded to it. But I would like to look at it before it goes on the website, and maybe other commissioners do too. So can we leave it till can you put it in the drive? Comments to you by Friday? Brian, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. I just was wondering if we could put it in the drive that we all have access to, or something like that, so we could all collaborate on it without it going, it's not a live document quite yet.
Yeah, we can, I'll find a spot on the drive and we can put it there for now. And then when we have a portion of it that there are replies to it, then maybe that's when we put that on I'll cut out a piece and put that on the website. Because if you guys have responded to it and we know, we agree, we disagree, make this change, then we can get these up there. And
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, can we just say, I'm just proposing this, that by the end of Friday, if you can get it into the drive tomorrow, say, by the end of Friday.
we could put it Monday. I mean, if people want to work on
Okay.
something over the weekend or something like that.
Okay.
I know everyone's busy during the week.
So
if
by
people
the
have
close of business next Monday, we will have looked at all the ones that have responses, just to make sure that we're all, fine with those going up on the website, and then we can put those ones up on the website, and we'll just keep chipping away at the ones that we haven't reviewed yet. What do other people think?
I think it's great, Ariane. I would just say, when I think about the zoning changes, and how many line items there would be and how we went through that process. I mean, generally we would take a look at the staff comments and the things that what Mike described, like there were a few things that we wanted to talk about, right? And we would bring that language up and we would talk about it. But for the most part, we just, en masse adopted most of those things, right? It was just the things that we were not clear on or needed policy decisions that we would spend more time on.
Right, so I was thinking, I mean, we could, we can spend more time on, or we can go through the ones that don't have responses yet. I just want to look over the ones that have responses before they're posted on the website.
Nope.
Does there have to be, do we need to take a vote before our commission recommendations go forward or go public? Or is that only
we'll
more teaching
probably
goals and aspirations?
we could probably, and we can add it to the end of the next meeting, as after the public input session, we can just go through and if everybody's taken a look at it, we can go and vote on whether we put it online.
Okay.
Okay. That sounds good. I mean, I think this format is good, and we've used it for the zoning. I think it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks
But
for
like you said, the toughest part is just getting through the mass of it. It's just so massive. When you get 200, 300, 400 lines of comments, we can't sit in the planning commission and go and say, what do you think about this one? What do you think about this one? Because we'll be here for months. But if that's what it takes, we would. But I think in a lot of cases, we can go through and say, yeah, somebody made a comment, planning commission agreed, or staff planner agreed to make the change. We made the change, and blunk, 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 or staff says, we recommend this for this reason, and everyone's like, yeah, I mean, we get why they want that comment, but the reality is state law says you can't, or something like that. So there's no reason debating something that you can't do.
Brian, what were you gonna say?
No, I just said, thanks, Mike, for putting that together.
Oh,
I mean, that was, I know that's something that the chair and the vice chair requested, but that's a good big snapshot of everything that's.
Yeah, and you guys already have a copy of it. I did email it to you this afternoon, so it is in your emails. So I guess that brings us up to the minutes.
So we have minutes for, let's see, what are the dates?
May 28th, June 3rd, June 10th.
Okay. We all want to just take a minute and look at them, and then if anyone wants to move approval. Oh, yeah. I did have one, well, there's changing Nikki Sabato's name.
Yep.
And I know Peter mentioned that in one, minutes of the public input session, there was not any record of the public comments, whereas in the other, there was a note made about a comment about emergency housing. So I wonder if we should just strike the one that has the comment about the public housing, just to be consistent. And so all of our public input goes into the matrix and is not reflected in the minutes, just as a consistency thing. So I would suggest those two changes. And that,
And I'm sorry, Ariane,
Peter.
which set of minutes is that on?
yeah, good point. Let's see. So June 3rd does say Rick DeAngelis asked about the lack of emergency housing guidance. So I guess I'm suggesting, because there weren't specific comments in the other attributed to anyone else in the two public input sessions, we just remove that line and just overall use the matrix for specific comments. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't think
does.
I don't think it's bad to put the names of people who provide input. We don't have to talk about what they said. Public input was provided by 1, 2, and 3. And that was, you said, June. Trying to look, I usually have notes on some of mine for who was present for some of these, but oh, I didn't have as many notes because I was giving the presentation. Oh, but it does have public, Rick DeAngelis, Doug Zorzi. And there was a space, there was a woman that showed up later. Doug Zorzi was there at that meeting. And then there was the woman who showed up later. I don't remember who she was. We were
Yeah,
already in breakout groups.
right, Catherine Burgess.
But it doesn't, let's see.
It was up under who was present at the meeting.
Oh,
Had those 3 names, but I could add those names at the bottom as well to go through and say input provided by Rick DeAngelis, Doug Zorzi, and Catherine Burgess, because they all provided input. But we don't have to necessarily get into detail of what specifically was the input.
That seems fine.
All right, so that is on that one. I had in my notes, Peter's still here. Peter is still here. I had in my notes, Peter put in comments under general business on the 28th, but it says there was no comments in the minutes. My notes said Peter had questions about CVRPC, so I think.
Okay. So we should make that change as well. So does anyone want to move approval of those 3 minutes with I think there are 3 changes that Mike is making, is that right, Mike? Or noting?
Yep, so I have Peter Kelman for the general business, fixing Nikki Sabado's name. And then on June 3rd, I have adding Catherine Burgess as being present, and then amending the regroup to hear comments and thoughts from people to reflect that Rick, DeAngelis, Doug, and Catherine all provided comments. And I don't have any changes from June 10th so far.
Move to approve the 3 sets of minutes with the changes just discussed.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then it's passed. All right, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
You do.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
I
Hi.
All right, thank you, everyone. So I'll see, hopefully all of you or most of you at the public input on Zoom on July 8th.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ariane.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.